At 6 feet 4 inches and 225 pounds, Larry Robinson wasn't just big. He was one of the scariest players in hockey history. But what made him special wasn't just his size. They called him Big Bird, but he played nothing like his friendly nickname. In his 17 years with the Montreal Canadiens, he won 6 Stanley Cups as a player. And even though some people only remember him for being tough, he was actually one of the smartest defenders to ever play the game. He could read plays before they happened and stop them before they became dangerous. Teams were so scared of him that they'd actually plan their entire game around avoiding his side of the ice. Robinson still holds the NHL record for the best career plus-minus rating of 722, proving how dominant he was defensively. Off the ice, he was known for studying the game like a general strategizing a battle, always looking for ways to stay ahead of his opponents. Before we dive into how this farm boy became one of hockey's most feared players, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We bring you stories of hockey legends that changed the game forever. Drop a like if you've heard of Big Bird Robinson, and let's get into it. Larry Robinson's journey to becoming a hockey legend started in a place far from the bright lights of NHL arenas, a horse farm in Marvelville, Ontario. Every morning at 5 a.m., young Larry would wake up to feed the horses and clean the stables before school. This farm life built the strength that would later terrify NHL players. But unlike most tough guys in hockey, Robinson wasn't just about being strong. Growing up, he studied how horses moved and balanced, which helped him become an unusually graceful skater for his size. His father, a horse trainer, taught him that power without control was useless, a lesson Larry took to heart on the ice. Even more surprising, he started as a forward and only switched to defense when his junior team was short on players. Nobody could have guessed that this farm boy, who spent more time with horses than playing hockey, would change how defense was played forever. When he first tried out for junior hockey, some scouts weren't convinced he had the toughness to succeed. Pretty funny considering he'd later be known as one of hockey's most intimidating players. Larry Robinson's path to the NHL wasn't like most hockey stars. When other young players were practicing in fancy rinks, he was playing on frozen ponds between farm chores. His first pair of skates came from a second-hand store, and they were so big he had to stuff them with newspaper. But these humble beginnings shaped him into something special. In junior hockey, playing for the Kitchener Rangers, Robinson shocked everyone when he grew 6 inches in just one summer, going from an average-sized player to a towering presence on the ice. The Montreal Canadiens almost didn't draft him at all. Their scout Ron Caron only noticed Robinson by accident while watching another player. What caught his eye wasn't a big hit or a great play. It was watching Robinson help a fallen opponent get up after a collision. The Canadiens picked him 20th overall in 1971, and most hockey experts called it a wasted pick. They said he was too slow and too nice for the NHL. In his first year with the Nova Scotia, Montreal's minor league team, Robinson proved everyone wrong. He won the award for best defenseman in the league, but not for the reasons you might think. Instead of just crushing opponents with his size, he became known for his unusual plays. He'd steal the puck, and instead of just dumping it away like most defensemen, he'd make these perfect passes right up the middle of the ice. His coach at the time said Robinson was the only player he'd ever seen who could be hitting someone into the boards 1 second and then skating gracefully with the puck the next. By the end of that year, the same scouts who called him too nice were now calling him the biggest steal of the draft. When Robinson first stepped onto NHL ice in 1973, hockey was a different game. Defensemen had one job: stop the other team from scoring. But Robinson didn't believe in playing by the old rules. In his early games, he stunned fans by skating coast to coast with the puck, something unheard of for a defenseman of his size. His coach tried to tell him to stay back, but Robinson just smiled and kept playing his way. What made Robinson special was his ability to mix power and skill. In a game against Boston early in his career, he delivered a punishing hit on one of their toughest players. Then, seconds later, took the puck and set up a goal. Moments like this made him a nightmare for opponents, tough enough to intimidate, but skilled enough to outplay anyone. Robinson's teammates noticed that he saw the game differently. He would watch hours of game film, not of defensemen, but of forwards, studying how they thought and predicting their moves before they happened. His practice habits were also unusual. After regular practice ended, he'd stay on the ice working on skills most defensemen never tried. Quick dekes, offensive rushes, and puck control moves usually reserved for forwards. By 1975, coaches around the league were redesigning their game plans to avoid Robinson. Some teams even experimented with their own defensemen joining the attack, but none could match his combination of size, speed, and skill. One frustrated opponent once said, "The best strategy against Robinson? Just hope he doesn't touch the puck." In a famous game against Philadelphia, Robinson proved that was impossible, scoring twice and assisting on 3 more goals in a 5-2 win. From 1976 to 1979, Larry Robinson became something hockey had never seen before. While other players slowed down at the end of games, Robinson seemed to get stronger. He had legendary endurance, once playing in a multiple overtime playoff game where he logged over 50 minutes of ice time, still looking fresh when others could barely skate. The numbers from these years almost sound made up. One moment that summed up his dominance came during a 1978 playoff series against Boston. When enforcer Stan Jonathan went after one of Montreal's smaller players, Robinson immediately stepped in. But instead of just fighting, he controlled the puck, skated past multiple defenders, and set up a goal, all while sending a message that Montreal would not be intimidated. By 1979, Robinson's defensive play reached its peak. He was on the ice for far more goals for than against, anchoring a Canadiens team that won 4 straight Stanley Cups from 1976 to 1979. His ability to transition from defense to offense was changing hockey itself. Sports writers at the time called it the most dominant defensive stretch in NHL history. Even his practice habits became legendary. He was known to practice shooting while balancing on one skate, explaining, "Because sometimes in games, you have to shoot while someone's pushing you." His style influenced a new generation of defensemen, showing that size and skill could go hand in hand. By 1979, he wasn't just the best defenseman in hockey, he was redefining the position itself. Robinson's dominance during this period wasn't just about numbers. It was about changing the way defense was played. He perfected gap control, keeping just enough distance to force opponents into mistakes, a fundamental technique still emphasized in hockey schools today. Even the greatest players struggled against him. Wayne Gretzky, who entered the league in 1979, later said Robinson was one of the toughest defensemen he ever faced, praising his rare ability to match an opponent's speed while thinking a step ahead. His impact extended to special teams as well. Robinson changed the way defensemen approached penalty killing. Rather than simply clearing the puck, he used his skating and puck control to maintain possession, frustrating opposing power plays. Teams had to adjust their entire strategy, knowing Robinson was just as dangerous shorthanded as he was at even strength. In multiple games, Robinson's defensive presence was so overwhelming that teams struggled to generate offense when he was on the ice. His ability to control play at both ends of the rink made him not just the best defenseman of his era, but one of the most influential in hockey history. During Montreal's 4 straight Stanley Cup wins from 1976 to 1979, Larry Robinson turned playoff hockey into his personal showcase. In the 1976 finals against Philadelphia, known as the Broad Street Bullies for their physical style, Robinson helped neutralize their aggression in a way few expected, not by fighting back, but by controlling the puck so effectively that they couldn't get to him. His skating and decision-making frustrated the Flyers all series long, setting the tone for a dominant Montreal sweep. The 1977 playoffs highlighted another side of Robinson's brilliance. In the final against Boston, he played key shutdown minutes against top scorers, including Bobby Schmotz, limiting their chances and forcing them to adjust their matchups. In a critical Game 5, Robinson was on the ice for an extended shift, protecting a 1-goal lead as the crowd counted the minutes allowed. But it was the 1978 championship run that truly defined Robinson's greatness. With Serge Savard sidelined, Robinson stepped up in a massive way, taking on more ice time and playing in every key situation. In the finals against Boston, he had one of his most complete performances, scoring, setting up a goal, blocking shots, and delivering punishing hits all in one game, proving that he could impact every area of play. By 1979, Robinson had mastered not just the physical and technical aspects of the game, but the psychological ones as well. Opponents knew what was coming, but still couldn't stop him. In the Stanley Cup final against the Rangers, Robinson reportedly told Phil Esposito, "I'm going to take the puck from you behind your net." Minutes later, he did exactly that, setting up a crucial goal. Even when teams knew what was coming, Robinson had reached a level where his dominance was inevitable. Larry Robinson's impact on hockey went far beyond his incredible stats. He redefined what it meant to be a defenseman. In an era when big players were expected to just hit and fight, Robinson proved you could be both tough and highly skilled. His all-around game became a model for future generations of defensemen. Even after retiring, Robinson continued to shape the sport. As a coach, he passed his defensive knowledge to a new wave of players, Stars like Scott Stevens and Chris Pronger followed in his footsteps, showing that dominant defenseman could be both physical and intelligent. His influence still exists today, as young defensemen study his ability to read plays, control the puck, and lead from the blue line. Robinson's legacy is forever enshrined in the Hockey Hall of Fame. His career proved that a great defenseman isn't just a bruiser or a shot blocker. They can be a game changer at both ends of the ice. Coaches and players alike still look back at his career as a blueprint for the modern NHL defenseman. Even today, when people talk about the perfect defenseman, they're really talking about Larry Robinson. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe for more NHL hockey legends. See you next time.